Okay, welcome to today's verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Letchford. We've had a special show for you today. Over the last 6 months to a year, we've had some unbelievable content, and we thought it was time to bring a best of. So stay tuned. Today's verdict starts right now. Okay, welcome back to today's verdict. I'm your host, David Lesh. We had a council member, Lynn Schulman, on to discuss, post-COVID health issues that have been occurring throughout the community. I think it was a terrific show. Stay tuned and take a look. Okay, welcome back to today's verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. We have joining us today, council member Lynn Schulman. Lynn, how are you doing today?
I'm good today. It's a beautiful day out.
It is. It's spring is coming slowly, but it's coming. I know it's been a while since you've been on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what made you become a council member.
So I have been a advocate of healthcare for many, many years, and I've been a longtime community activist, and I wanted to make a difference. So this was my third time running for city council. I ran 2 other times, so it just shows how tenacious it was for me to be able to get into a position where I can have some influence and make some changes that are good for all New Yorkers.
Let's talk a little bit about life expectancy.
Sure.
As you grow up, you always think that it's just going to keep growing and getting longer, larger. You always think, well, you're going to live longer than your parents, and you're going to live longer than your parents. But that's not always the case.
No. So prior to COVID, the life expectancy of New Yorkers started to go down a little bit. And then with COVID, it precipitated the decline. So it's, I think, somewhere in the high 70s now, and it had a proportional effect too. So the average life expectancy has gone down 4.6 years for just people overall, but in Black communities, it's gone down about 5.6% and 6% in Latino, Latinx communities. So last fall, I joined the Mayor Adams, and Commissioner Bosson from the city's Department of Health, to launch Healthy NYC, which is a program to increase, the goal is to increase the life expectancy of all New Yorkers to 83 and by the year 2030, which is a pretty big increase, but we think we can do that and make New York City the healthiest city in the country.
Why do you think there's been a drop in life expectancy? What are your thoughts?
COVID-19, like I said, was a big precipitator of it, but there's 7 drivers of premature death, which is considered death for people below the age of 65. It's suicide, it's chronic health diseases like diabetes, it's violence as well, and it's cancer and maternal mortality.
Any ones in particular that's been on the uptick?
I mean, I think chronic disease is one of the biggest ones. If you may recall, last year I passed the first citywide diabetes reduction plan, which actually, it's interesting because we're having this interview today, but the Department of Health has a year to put together the plan, which has concrete goals and milestones. And that plan is due sometime in April. So we're going to be acting on that. And that actually will fold into Healthy NYC. So we want to make sure that we can address a lot of these chronic health issues.
Let's talk a little bit about the chronic health issues and how to actually address them. Is it through medicine? Is it through therapy? There are so many different ways to address life expectancy.
It's a lot of things, and I'm going to be honest with you. So I'm a patient who's a little bit on the lazy side, and the reason I'm saying that to you is because one of the goals that I have, I think that we all have, is to make healthcare accessible in a way that people can actually take care of themselves and not feel that it's a burden. A lot of people work jobs. they work more than one job, they have childcare issues, all of that stuff. And so healthcare kind of goes by the wayside a little bit. And so we want to make it easier. So if that means, hey, if you walk 10 minutes a day, you're going to do X. That's easy enough. If you eat fruit 3 times a week, I'm making this up, but if you eat fruit 3 times a week, this will happen. So there's all different aspects of it that I think can make it bite-sized enough for people to actually start really taking care of themselves and saying, oh, this is easy. I can add this to my routine.
It always seems like it starts with a primary care physician that you need, and I've been talking to my wife about it. They're so hard to find. They're very difficult, but once you find one, then it's sticking with the program. Am I correct?
Yes, but it is difficult to find them. But what we want to do as part of this plan is to make sure that we have more accessible healthcare. So, for example, a lot of the H&H facilities will be a part of this. The part of the plan is actually having consultation with all different stakeholders. That includes public and private hospitals. We're trying to find a way to make it accessible where people don't have to go too far to get either care, or they can get counsel on how to take better care of themselves, all of that.
Now, the bill, or what should I say, passing this legislation,
Mhm.
what did it involve?
What that bill does, it's interesting. That bill codifies the plan. So it's a 5-year plan that keeps going on every 5 years. And so as an example, and you know this, when administrations come in, whether it's a state and whether it's a state administration or a city administration, whatever, there are programs that take place, but then they kind of go away when the administration leaves. This is something that's going to go on in perpetuity. That's what's important about it. So it's going to keep going on every year. There has to be a report given to the council and to the mayor about what's happening, what goals are being achieved, what goals are not being achieved, and what works. And what's great about that is it actually helps us to figure out where resources should be focused on.
Where are we going from here? I mean, are we becoming a society now that's finally starting to take our health, especially our mental health, into consideration? Is it an inflection point? What are your thoughts?
I think people are more cognizant of their healthcare needs, so that's very important. And as part of that, I'm gonna switch a little bit. So parks are very important too. Green space is very important. That all fits into New York City Healthy NYC, because people get to exercise, and actually it's been shown that people that use park space have a 43% lower risk of getting ill.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Councilmember Shulman. Certainly, I think we can all agree that improving one's health is probably the #1 priority in our lives.
And I want to say one thing: this program wouldn't have happened with the input without the mayor and without the speaker. Both of them are very committed to healthcare and to making sure that New York City is the healthiest city in the country.
All right. Well, thanks very much. Hopefully we'll see you again in a few months.
Okay, take care.
All right, stay with us. Today's Verdict has so much more coming up right after this. Welcome back to Today's Verdict. I'm your host, David Lesh. Do you know what IVF benefits are? Well, we did a show, especially on lawsuit against New York City for IVF benefits. Let's take a look at the show right now. All right, welcome back to Today's Verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. We have joining us today, Peter Romare-Friedman of the Peter Romare-Friedman Law Firm. Peter, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
So first of all, tell us a little bit about you. Who are you?
I actually grew up in Brooklyn, in Park Slope, went to high school in New York, I went to Columbia Law School, and I've been practicing law for about 15 years. I was a labor counsel to Ted Kennedy on the Senate Labor Committee. And since 2009, I've been mostly working as a class action and impact civil rights litigator. I practice throughout the country, but I focus on New York and DC, where I'm a member of the bar. And I've worked in a lot of gay rights cases over the years, including the one that we filed last Thursday.
Let's talk about that particular
Yeah.
action. Tell the viewers about it.
Sure. So last Thursday, my clients, Corey Briskin and Nicholas Majapinto, they're a gay male couple, got married about 8 years ago. They filed a class action lawsuit against the city of New York, as well as Mayor Adams and former Mayor de Blasio, claiming that the city of New York, like all employers, that if they provide IVF benefits to their workers broadly, that they can't exclude gay men from receiving those IVF benefits. And that's essentially what this case is about. Corey and Nicholas have wanted to expand their family for a number of years. And Corey Briskin was an assistant district attorney in New York County as a prosecutor. Unlike the women and the men who were married to women down the hall from him who got IVF benefits from the city, Corey Briskin could not receive those benefits. And that has caused Corey and Nicholas to delay at least 5 years in growing their family biologically. Gay men, when they want to expand their families and have a biological child, really have no feasible option besides using in vitro fertilization. And unfortunately, while the city's health plan is very generous towards most people who want to get those benefits and grow their families biologically, gay men, we believe hundreds, if not thousands of them, have been denied that same equal opportunity.
All right, now the couple, have they always wanted a child, or is this something new, or when did they decide to put the process in motion?
Well, they've wanted to have a child since they were married in 2016. And in 2017, when Corey Briskin became a New York City employee, he was hopeful that the city would provide IVF benefits to them that would make it easier and less costly for them to grow their family. They have put that dream on hold from 2017 until 2023. Corey Briskin did end up leaving the city, although he's still on the city's health plan. But in 2023, they were able to get the resources to start the IVF process. And so now Corey and Nicholas have fertilized embryos. They were able to get an egg donor and paid out of pocket for the cost of the fertilization of those eggs. So this year, they are hopeful that they will have a surrogate who will carry the embryos and the pregnancy to term, and they'll have 1 or maybe even 2 kids this year. But like a lot of other gay men, it didn't come without a very significant price, a price that employees and their partners who are not gay men have not been asked to bear.
All right, well, it's a class action. So who's being represented in the class?
So the class is essentially all gay men who were denied or were rendered ineligible for getting IVF benefits through the city's healthcare plan over the past 3 or 4 years, actually 5 years for the employees. So we're representing both the employees and their partners who are gay men who have been denied these benefits. It's a very lengthy period of time because the New York City human rights law allows us to go back 3 years prior to the time that my clients filed their discrimination charge with the EEOC.
So are we filed in New York? Is this a federal filing?
It is. So we filed the case in the Southern District of New York in the U.S. District Court there in Manhattan. And we brought claims under the federal Title VII statute, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits both sex and sexual orientation discrimination in terms of the workplace, including when providing employee benefits. We also brought claims under the federal equal protection and due process clauses, as well as under the same clauses of the New York State Constitution. And then we also have claims under the New York State and city human rights laws, which prohibits sex and sexual orientation discrimination in the workplace.
So where are we in terms of discovery? Have you taken depositions on these types of cases? What's been going on?
Well, we haven't gone into discovery yet because we filed this class action lawsuit on last Thursday.
Okay.
So we've just served the complaint and the city is accepting service. We're not sure whether the city will and other defendants will move to dismiss or will answer. But we did have an opportunity to take some informal discovery when we filed the charge with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And so, as you can see in the complaint, we've detailed a lot of information that is not publicly available because we obtained it through the EEOC process.
Have there been any settlement negotiations? Has anyone discussed, this is for pecuniary loss in some respects. Has anyone discussed any kind of monetary compensation here?
Well, we have reached out to the city to talk settlement in the past. Normally, settlement conversations are confidential,
Yeah.
but I can tell you we have not received any sort of interest from the city in sitting down to talk about settlement, and I think that that's unfortunate because we've heard from the city council members who introduced a bill to provide these very benefits to Corey and Nicholas and other gay men, that city leaders don't stand by this policy. So the mayor in many ways is standing alone by defending this policy before the EEOC. And, we would hope that the mayor would work with us to settle this case. It would be a very easy settlement. We've said publicly what we're seeking, and that's what we would want in a settlement. We want a change in the policy so that gay men going forward would not be categorically excluded from getting IVF benefits through the city's health plan. But we also want compensation for the employees and their partners, like Nicholas and Corey, who have been denied these benefits in the past. And we can figure out the right compensation in a fairly straightforward way.
How would you do that? I'm actually curious. How do you know what the compensation is?
Well, at a minimum, the compensation is the out-of-pocket cost that Corey and Nicholas and the gay male employees of the city and their partners have expended. We could do that through estimating those costs and a claims process. What might be a little bit harder is compensating the people who didn't actually go forward with the IVF benefits because they couldn't front the costs. But we certainly could agree on an amount of money that would compensate those families, those couples, for being denied the benefits.
All right. Well, Peter, I want to thank you very much. I think it's a very interesting issue, and I'm sure the viewers appreciate you being here. Maybe you can come back in the next couple of months and let us know how the litigation's going, if it is going.
Happy to come back and talk about it. Also happy to talk about other cases that I have against the city of New York and other civil rights cases that are going on in New York City. These are important issues, and we hope that the federal courts here will give us some relief.
All right. All right. Well, thanks again. All right. Stay with us. Today's verdict has so much more coming up right after this. All right. Welcome back to today's verdict. Should we ban TikTok? Yes, no, maybe. Well, we did a show. And guess what? We got a lot of feedback. So we're going to show it again. Take a look at the show. Welcome back to today's verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. We have with us today Thomas Bosworth, who's going to be discussing the TikTok ban. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Who knows? But anyway, Thomas, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, tell us a little bit about you. Who are you?
Just a kid from a small town in Western Massachusetts. My dad was a police officer. My mom worked in restaurants, and I went on to be a lawyer. So now I represent people in catastrophic injury and death cases.
And how long have you been doing that for?
About 8 years.
8 years? Okay. So how much do you know about this TikTok issue? Because it seems to be ping-ponging back and forth on all the different networks. And it almost seems to have bipartisan support. Tell us a little bit about actually what TikTok is, because for some of the viewers, they don't even know what it means, especially in the Bronx.
Sure. Yeah. TikTok is it's a social media application. So it's a program you can have on your phone where you can create videos and watch different videos of anything in the world you can imagine, any subject area, topic, serious, funny, and it's a way for people to connect and communicate.
Is it free? Do you have to pay for it? Something else?
It's free to download, I think, and you just download it in the App Store on your iPhone, and it takes about a minute.
Okay. So what are the origins of this particular company? Where does it come from? Where did it start? United States, someplace else?
the company that owns TikTok is called ByteDance, and I don't proclaim to be an expert on the company itself, but they are based in China, and so TikTok over time has evolved to include other American-based companies. There's a company called Oracle that TikTok is affiliated with that helps to store a lot of the electronic data that exists online, and it's weird to think about data existing because it's not like a physical thing, but there's companies that actually store this data. So the company's evolved quite a bit.
So where is most of the data stored? In China, in the United States companies, or just both?
I honestly don't know the answer to that, so I don't want to get in trouble and say one thing or the other, but I know that according to TikTok, they made a huge push when this pressure started, so to speak, this pressure to get rid of TikTok or basically make TikTok a domestic American company. I know that they affiliated with Oracle and launched something called the Texas Project, where they say that, I don't know if they say all of their data, but I think most, if not all, their data is now stored and protected in the United States.
When did it start, this TikTok, to begin with? What's the origin?
I don't know the year it started. I am in TikTok years, I'm probably elderly because I'm 35. So
Right.
a lot of the I'm like an elder statesman or something. But a lot of the folks on TikTok are I've seen a lot of young kids on there. But it's all ages really.
All right. So what's the problem? Why is everybody up in arms about this social media platform? I mean, we have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have so many that nobody seems to be as angry about. Why this one? Why this platform?
Well, if I were a member of Congress, I would answer in a way that I think they want the American public to think about this, which is a national security threat. The rally cry from the politicians has been, this is a Chinese company. It's dangerous to national security because they could take our data or information and sell it to the Chinese government or give it to the Chinese government. And I've heard different iterations of what that would look like. They've claimed that they could interfere with American elections. Now, of course, social media is wrought with material that's false, material that's legitimate, not just TikTok, on Instagram, Facebook, yada, yada, yada. So I think if you're asking me as a person what I think there's a little bit more to it behind the scenes that we probably don't know about. If you think about TikTok, there are 170 billion users in the United States. It's continuing to eat up the market share that has previously been dominated by companies like Facebook and Instagram. I can't imagine that they're thrilled about that, but I've never actually seen or heard any supportable, bona fide evidence to suggest that TikTok's actually misusing data and affiliating with the Chinese government.
By the way, these other platforms, you mentioned Facebook, let's say Twitter, Instagram. What happens to their data? Where is that stored?
God only knows. I mean, there's problems with every social media application. There are issues with with social media inherently. And I think what a lot of people realize that use TikTok or that care about the issue is, if you want to have reform, that's great. And if you want to employ safeguards, that's great. But a total ban is not only impractical, but also unconstitutional, in my opinion.
Why? Why do you say it's unconstitutional?
A couple different reasons. Number one, it infringes upon not only the First Amendment rights of the users of TikTok who come to this platform to express their views and express themselves. It takes away that medium, right? And the United States Supreme Court has already referred to social media as basically the modern day public square. Whereas in the 1800s, you had the actual public square. Now it's social media. So you're removing one of those arenas from people who rely upon it. Secondly, there's issues involving economic liberty. And I don't know if you want to characterize it as a takings, but you're forcing a company to sell itself, which is, in my view, problematic on a whole lot of different levels and frankly un-American. The company being targeted is, of course, Chinese. And so I think the argument's cut both ways on that. The proponents of the ban would say, well, all the more reason it needs to be banned. We can't have foreign adversaries. But constitutional scholars I've heard talk about the fact that could be discriminatory and a slippery slope if we're targeting one company more than others, and particularly if we're targeting someone based on national origin or ethnicity.
Well, let me ask you a question. Former President Trump has also advocated banning TikTok. It's one of the few things that he and President Biden actually agree on. You have two of the most important politicians in the world banding together. It's kind of tough to fight that. I mean, you got both leaders of both parties. So what are your thoughts and what would be able to fight it? Other than interviews like this, what else? What could stir the tide?
But with all due respect to President Biden and former President Trump, I think there's a huge generational divide here, and I think that there's a detachment from the modern society that most of us are living in. Mr. Trump and President Biden are no spring chicken and I don't mean that in a negative way, because there is value to our elders and there is value to being older and having more life experience. But, we're not talking about a rinky dink little sect of the population here. TikTok is huge. And as somebody who has a decent amount of followers, I'm seeing more diversity in the age group on there. I'm seeing folks who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, even on there. So I think politicians often get things wrong. And I think that the only way that they can realize they're wrong is from hearing from their constituency. And I think there's been quite an uproar in response to this.
How do you use TikTok personally? Do you use it for your business at all, or do you just use it for personal reasons? How do you use it?
So my wife back in August 2022 was like, you should do a law TikTok. And I was like, why? Nobody's going to listen to that. That's boring. And she's like, no, seriously, do it. I did it. And then, sure enough, people started watching my videos. So I really like to do informational videos that talk about some of the topics that I encounter as a civil litigator going up against big corporations. I think that information is useful to people. I don't do it to get business or to get cases. Coincidentally, people reach out to me and do sometimes ask me to represent them. So I've gotten cases that way, but I think it's a great tool to spread information.
All right, we're going to leave it there, Thomas. I'm going to thank you very much. We could debate this for the next 25 minutes.
Yeah, I'm sure we could.
But maybe you can come back in the next couple of months and let's see where it all lands. How's that?
I appreciate it so much. Thank you. Thank you for interviewing me. Appreciate it.
It's our pleasure.
Okay.
Stay with us. Today's Verdict has so much more coming up right after this. Well, that's all we have for today for our Best of Today's Verdict. If you have any questions or issues you'd like to see on a future edition of Today's Verdict, feel free to email me at davidlesh@bronxnet.org. Until the next time, know your issues, reach a verdict. I can't wait to bring you another Best of Today's Verdict sometime in the next 6 months to a year. See you next week.